Hi, hello, YouTube librarian. I'm going to be reading from Jacques Derrida's Jury and Pardon, Volume 1. Pardon? Yeah, sorry, pardon. I just said pardon in French. You don't understand anything about this for the moment, no doubt. Pardon, it's a word. Pardon. This word is a noun. It says pardon, les pardon. In the French language, it is a noun. One can find its homonymic equivalent more or less in the same state with more or less the same meaning, and with usages that are at least analogous in other languages. English, for example. Pardon, in certain contexts, I will clarify when the time comes. Although the word is, if not Latin, at least in its tortuous affiliation of Latin origin, perdon in Spanish, pardu in Portuguese, perdono in Italian, in the Latin origin of this word, and in too complex a way for us to handle it head on today. One finds a reference to the gift, down to donation. On more than one occasion, we will need to carry over the problems and metaphors of the gift, such as I tried to formalize, for example, in Given Time. And notably, in the final chapter of that book entitled Excuse and Forgiveness, Pardon, to transfer them, so to speak, onto problems and onto those non-problems. Aporias and forgiveness constitute aporias that are analogous and more overly. Well, one must neither yield to these analogies between the gift and forgiveness, nor, of course, neglect their necessity. Rather, one must attempt to articulate the two to follow them to the point where all of a sudden they cease being present, being given and forgiven. There's at least this affinity or this alliance according to which we decide to be unconditional principle. Giving and forgiving, giving, forgiving. Don pardon. But they have an essential relation to time, to the movement of temporalization. Even though it seems to bind forgiveness to a past which in a certain way does not pass, it makes forgiveness an experience irreducible to that of the gift, to a gift that is attributed more commonly to the present, to the presentation or presence of the present. Now I just said experience of forgiveness or the gift, but the word experience may already seem badly and precipitously using that forgiveness and gift have perhaps this in common, that they never present themselves as such to what is normally called an experience. A presentation to consciousness or to existence, precisely because of the aporias I will be required to take into account, and for example, to limit myself to this for the first time being the aporia that renders me incapable of giving enough, or of being hospitable enough. Here I'm linking things to the seminar of previous years, of being present enough to the present that I give, and to the welcome that I offer, such that I think I am even certain of this, that I always have to be forgiven, to ask forgiveness for not giving, for never giving enough, for never offering or welcoming enough. One is always guilty. One must always be forgiven when it comes to the gift, and the aporia gets more serious when one becomes conscious of the fact that if one has to ask forgiveness for not giving, for never giving enough, one may also feel guilty and to have to ask forgiveness. On the contrary, forgiveness for what one gives, which can become a poison, a weapon, an affirmation of sovereignty, or even omnipotence, or an appeal for reckoning. One always takes in giving we have in the past. I insisted at length on that logic of giving and taking. One must therefore ask a priori for forgiveness for the gift itself. One has to be forgiven for the gift, or the sovereignty or desire for sovereignty of the gift. And pushing it further irresistibly to the second degree, one would even have to be forgiven forgiveness, which itself also risks involving the irreducible ambiguity of an affirmation of sovereignty, indeed of mastery. Those are the abysses that await us and for which we'll always be on the lookout, but not as accidents to avoid, but as the very ground, the groundless ground of the very thing called gift or forgiveness. So no gift without forgiveness, and no forgiveness without gift. but the two are not, above all, the same thing. The verbal link between don and pardon, which is marked in Latin languages but not in Greek, for example, as far as I know. And we will have to ask ourselves about the apparent presence or absence of forgiveness in a strict sense in ancient Greek culture. An enormous and delicate question. This verbal link between don and pardon is also present in English and German. In English, to forgive, forgiveness, asking for forgiveness, and one will contrast to give and to get, that extraordinary word in English, which one would have to devote years of seminar to forgive, versus to forget. Forgiving is not forgetting. Another enormous problem. In German, though, Verzeichen is more common. Verzeichung, Jennen Verzeichung bieten to ask someone for forgiveness. It isn't the word Hegel uses in a phenomenology of spirit. We'll return to that. Although one often uses Entschuldigung more in the sense of an excuse, and Entschuldbar in the equivocal sense of the forgivable, excusable, literally decouple, is eisable, relieved of, exonerated from a debt that has been remitted. There is nonetheless a word in German, a lexical family, that maintains this link between the gift and forgiveness. Vergeben means to forgive. Ich biete Vergebung, I ask for forgiveness. But its usage is generally reserved for solemn, even religious or spiritual occasions. Less everyday usages and Verzeichen or Entschuldigung. This link between usages of the word pardon, so-called common, everyday casual usages on the one hand, for example, when I say pardon me, when I have to pass in front of someone as I get out of the elevator. And on the other hand, the serious, considered intense usages, this link between all types of usages in very different situations. This link will be one of our problems, both a semantic problem concerning the concept of forgiveness and a pragmatic problem concerning the acts of language or ultra-linguistic behavior. More frequently, but that frequency and probability is precisely a question of pragmatic, of context and social gesture, more foreseeably than the Verbegung has rather the religious sense in this case. The Biblio-Quranic, therefore, a remission of sins, even though the usage of this lexical family, Vergebung, Vergabe, is both flexible and perverse. Vergebung can mean a misdeal, Mardon, corruption of the gift, seek equals vergeben, to be compromised, and Vergabe is the contractor word that's under. Pardon is a noun. It can sometimes be preceded by a definite or indefinite article. Le pardon, un pardon. And inscribe, for example, a subject in the constitutive sentence. Pardon is this or that, forgiveness, le pardon. Has been asked by someone or by an institution. A pardon has been granted or refused, etc. The forgiveness asked by the conference of bishops, by the police, by the medical profession. Forgiveness at the university or the Vatican has not yet asked for, etc. That is the noun as reference of the constitutive or theoretical type. One can devote a seminar to the question of forgiveness, which is basically what we are getting ready to do. Forgiveness becomes to that extent the name of a theme or a theoretical problem to be dealt with within a horizon of knowledge, and thus the seminar's actors request to grant forgiveness by treating of it theoretically. And when I opened his seminar by saying pardon, you weren't to know, you still don't know what I was doing, whether I was begging your pardon or whether, instead of using the word, I was mentioning the noun pardon as the title of the seminar. For in the single word pardon, with or without an exclamation mark, one may, although nothing constrains one to do so, the context is not required. Already, an entire sentence implied in it. A performative sentence. Sorry, I beg your pardon. I beg you, Lupri, to pardon me. I beg you, Lupri, to pardon me. I beg you, pardonnez me, je vous prie, pardonnez-moi, je te prie. Already marking. I've just marked it as if in passing, beginning with a long digression in parentheses. This distinction between tu and vus, in order to situate and announce a question, will long remain suspended, but in which everything will no doubt else hang. If the you is not of us, of respect or distance, like the vus that Davina says is preferable to vu verse 2, which signifies too much proximity or familiarity or fusion, and risks canceling the infinite transcendence of the other. If therefore the you of I beg your pardon, or pardon is a collective plural you, the question then becomes one of a collective pardon, whether that concern a group of subjects, other citizens, individuals, etc., or whether it already involved. And this is even more complicated, but with the complication is at the heart of pardon. A multiplicity of instances or a moment instead of instance of I's instead of I. Who forgives or who asks who for forgiveness at what moment? Who has the right or power to do that? Who forgives whom? And what does the who signify here? That'll always be the almost ultimate form of the question. Most often of a question by definition, it's however for. However formidable it be, that question is perhaps not the ultimate question. More than once will be faced with the effect of a prerequisite question. Prior to this one, the question who or what. Does one forgive someone for wrong committed? For example, a perjury. But, as I will try to argue later, a fault, an offense, a harm. A wrong committed is in a certain sense always a perjury. Does one forgive someone, or does one forgive someone something? Someone who, in whichever way, can never totally be confused with the wrongdoing in the moment of the past wrongdoing. Not even of the past in general. This question, who or what, won't stop coming back to haunt, to obsess the language of forgiveness in many forms, and not only by multiplying the operatic difficulties, but also by obliging us finally to suspect or suspend the meaning of this opposition between who and what. A little as if the experience of forgiveness request and wish for whether granted or not. As if perhaps the impossibility of a true, appropriate, and appropriable experience of forgiveness meant the dismissal of this opposition between who and what is dismissed, and therefore its history, its past historicity. But between the pardon and pardonnement, and the pardon and pardonnez-moi, or forgive us, singular, familiar, plural, four possibilities that are essentially different,